And boom goes the dynamite. We're back. And we're having a lot of fun. Jack Pilgrim here with Zach Gagan and Jacob Polachek to break down another big time edition for the Kentucky Wildcats. If you can't beat them, take them. Is that what we're rolling with? Mouhamed Diabate, Alabama transfer, is officially a Kentucky Wildcat. Guys, it's a big one for Mark Pope. It's one that some been brewing a little bit throughout the day, just kind of letting it marinate. It finally comes to fruition, and it is one that I know BBN is very excited about. Zach Gagan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Diabate edition. 6'7", kind of a tweener between a small forward and a power forward type guy, but one of those dudes who can rebound the hell out of the ball, versatile defender, cutter, scores around the rim really well. Not exactly a guy that you're going to be like, hey, go get us a bucket type thing, but Kentucky's already kind of filled that out with a few different roles there, and still have kind of a spot or two to play with to add to that area. But so you get a guy like Diabate who, Kentucky fans complained a lot all season about how, hey, we're not as athletic and as strong and tough as a lot of these other SEC teams. Well, Diabate is kind of like your answer to all that. He's a strong, big body dude who gets his way into the rim, put back dunks, all these types of things. Really relentless type guy. Pretty strong motor from just what I've seen in the highlights and things so far. It'll be interesting to kind of dive into the actual game film and see what his defensive, talents are like. We've seen him a handful of times this season. Like Jack said, we saw him 3 times. He beat Kentucky every single time. He didn't have like otherworldly stats, but he was a guy I remember being like, man, that guy is just so he's just bigger than anyone that Kentucky has. And he kind of proved it out there whenever he was playing Kentucky. So, yeah, like you said, if you can't beat him, take him. And I think he's going to be a good addition. I don't really know what his actual role is going to be. Is he going to come in and want to be a starter from day one? He had that quote to the Tuscaloosa News after the tournament where he said, I'm going to go get what I deserve. Does that mean he thinks he deserves to be a starter or not? We'll find out pretty soon. But he's definitely a guy that's going to have a big piece in the rotation here. The rebounding and the versatility on defense, I think, are the two main things that you get out of this guy that you're really going to enjoy going into next season.
Yeah, Jacob, tough as nails. A guy that, when you watch him play, you're just like, his numbers don't jump off the stat sheet typically ever. So, say he's had a couple big time double doubles, but it's the how you watch him play where you're like, man, that dude has just hit every loose ball. And how many times did we say this past season, why is nobody there for the offensive putback? Why is nobody diving there for the loose ball? That is what Mouhamed Diabate does. So just going back to the stats, obviously the head-to-head battle, we've seen Mark Pope in this situation very often. If he had a big game against Mark Pope, he goes after you in the portal. We saw that with Brandon Garrison. We saw that with Otega Oweh. We go down the list, and this is the next example. Diabate went for 8 and 8 with 3 assists and a steal in the first head-to-head matchup, then went for 4 points, 5 rebounds, and a block in the rematch in Tuscaloosa, and then 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal in the SEC tournament blowout. So 3 wins for the Crimson Tide, and Mark Pope says, we'll need some of that here in Lexington.
Yeah, you mentioned those games. He was a big reason why Otega lost his 10-point streak because Diabate was defending him for most of that game. So like Zach keeps saying, if you can't beat him, join him. He's a guy that really impressed in those games against Kentucky. And one thing that's interesting about the way that Kentucky's approaching the portal, all 3 guys that they've signed have multiple years of eligibility left. So you had a big portal class last year with a lot of guys who were one and done, and now they're kind of building towards the future.
Zach, another lefty. We just talked about
that's crazy.
We just talked about this with Jalen Lowe. We were like, man, how cool is it that we're going to have an all lefty backcourt? Let's just add another front court edition. Is there a lefty 5 out there that we can add? I feel like if you're going to do this, you might as well just go all starting 5.
Yeah, like so they got 4 lefties now. You probably won't see too much of that lefty jump shot just because I think he took 0.9, 0.8 something 3-point attempts. I think he
46%
shot a high percentage.
though.
Yeah, 46%. So I could probably pull up the actual totals real quick. He was 12 of 26 on the season. Is that right? That sounds right. Yeah, 12 26 on the season from three. So, like I said, less than a three a game. But yeah, he's another lefty guy. I actually went back and like was going through Big Blue history to look at how many lefties are on one team, and we found out that it was the Jared Polson, James Young, and Julius Randle team. Apparently, I guess Sam Malone was also a lefty, and he was a walk on for that team as well.
Does he
So we have
count
four.
though? Does
We're
that
going to
count?
count him for the purpose of my narrative in this exact moment. We're going to count him as a guy on that team. So yeah, you're matching that, I guess the 2013-14 team with four lefties out there at one time. But I kind of have like a lazy Kentucky comparison for Diabate, and I think it's Jared Vanderbilt
I was going to say the same thing. That's a great call.
is just a good one, maybe just like a smaller version of him, hopefully with maybe a stronger foot as well. So I think you're going to get some of the similar traits from him. He's kind of an underrated playmaker type guy as well. The assist rate's really good. If you so Diabate he didn't play enough minutes he only played like 60 minutes a game last season. He was definitely like an off the bench energy guy for them. And obviously you have Grant Nelson in front of him and Cliff Amori. So you're not going to, start him over those guys. But if you look at his defensive rebounding and offensive rebounding numbers, if he was on Kentucky's team, he would have been the second best defensive rebounder by defensive rebounding percentage on KenPom. He would have been number 2 on the team behind Amari Williams. He would have been number 1 on the team in offensive rebounding rate. So you're immediately getting a guy who, despite being 6'7" and really not terribly large at 215 pounds, he works hard and he goes and he fights on the glass and gets boards. So that's something you're getting out of him. Like you said, he's got a nice little touch when he gets around the basket. Loves to really, he's a guy that if he gets blocked at the rim on a first shot, he's going to go up and he's going to grab the second rebound. He's going to get himself some second chance opportunities. As you're seeing right there, a pretty good guy in transition as well. That's another area where he likes to get out and go. He's going to get a lot of his points that way.
I remember that play.
Yeah, I remember that play too. There's a couple actually of the SEC tournament plays here that Steven can skip over if they get to him. But speaking of right
one.
there we go.
Damn it!
Well, let's just look and see what he does. Running fast, running the break, beating everyone down the floor. So that's I know in the South Carolina game he matched up against Murray Boyles for a lot of that, and he held him really well. He's a guy that will go up against and he'll handle a guy like Janai Broom, or maybe not handle him, but he'll take the matchup and he'll accept the matchup. He can guard bigger guys. I don't know if he's someone that you want to put on like a point guard or something like that, but I know that his defensive versatility is really, multi-positional, like at least 3 or 4 position type guy. So you're getting a lot of intangibles with this guy. Not exactly someone who's going to go out and score 20 points every night, but Kentucky's got a few of those guys already. So I think this is a really good piece to add, especially if this is maybe the final front court piece that they're going to add. I think there's probably not many guys that you'll do better than this.
Jacob, the one stat, like you could tell me nothing else about this kid except just this very one specific stat, 10 points, 16 rebounds, overtime win against number 6 Houston. Like, this dude looks like he belongs in a Houston jersey. Like, just the style of play, the tenacity, what you're going to see tonight in the national championship game is a guy like Mo Diabate, and that's all I needed to see. Just go back if you have any doubts about what he can be in a Kentucky uniform. Go watch his tape against Houston and just let that do the talking for me, Jacob.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of it. You can point to 10 examples throughout the season of why Kentucky fans should be excited about this guy. And it's interesting because he had a pretty quiet transfer recruitment, but if you look at the list of schools that were going after him, Kentucky beat out a lot of heavy hitters, NC State, Providence, Oklahoma, Villanova, North Carolina, Michigan, Louisville. You can just go down the line. So he was really highly coveted in the portal, and it's a big recruiting win for Mark Pope.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of what comes next, I think that's a really important thing for Kentucky, because as crazy as it sounds, I mean, here we are on April 7th. At this time last year, we were gearing up for one hell of a night. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but exactly 1 year ago today, April 7th, 2024, was the night that all of the rumors and speculation came out that John Calipari was in talks to take the Arkansas job. So absolute just crazy turn of events. But here we are on April 7th, and the majority of the roster is here, Zach. Like, I mean, you don't have very many spots to fill left. Kentucky at this stage is expecting all 5 of those guys to come back. When you're talking Otega Owe, when you're talking Brandon Garrison, and the 3 freshmen, Colin Chandler, Trent Noah, and Travis Perry, you factor those guys in with Jalen Lowe and Cam Williams, and then the 3 freshmen, you don't have much else to add, Zach. How do you want this to wrap up? Obviously, there are some names out there that are definitely garnering a lot of interest. Is there any that are kind of jumping off the page at you?
I think Wesley Yates is the obvious kind of option right there because it definitely feels like, Jacob and I were talking off camera beforehand. You get 15 roster spots or scholarship or roster spots. So yes, you can use as much as you want, but Kentucky has the 3 walk-ons. So you're at 11 scholarship guys right now, plus the 3 walk-ons. So that kind of theoretically puts you at 1 more remaining piece if Kentucky elects to bring back all 3 of those walk-ons, Derbyshire, Horn, and Toe. So if you go off that, you're kind of looking at 1 more roster spot. And I think it's definitely a guy that you want, a guy that can go get you buckets. Whether that's a guy like Jaron Pierre who can score from anywhere, or a guy like Wesley Yates who shoots 40% from 3 on really good volume. I think those are the 2, that'll be the kind of the archetype that Kentucky will prioritize here. We're looking at the last couple of guys here. Do they still try and make a push for Jaden Quaintance or Fulgaris? Those are 2 other kind of front court options that they're not necessarily centers. They're kind of 4 type guys that would play alongside like a Brandon Garrison or a Malachi Moreno. So it definitely kind of, unless some major center prospect pops into the portal or something, it definitely feels like Kentucky is very content with the center situation with BG and Moreno coming in, and then having the ability to play smaller lineups with a guy like Diabate who can play the 5, or he probably could play the 5. I don't know if he probably wouldn't do very well there, but you can play him at the 4. You can put Cam Williams at the 4, so you can kind of shift these guys down a little bit and change the roster makeup a bit. Go small ball if you like. So I definitely think that Wesley Yates and Pierre are the 2 guys that that are kind of on the big board right now that you want to look at. And if they can land Yates, there's all those connections there. The Alvin Brooks connection with him, and I think he's friends with Jelon Lowe as well. So there is some connections there with Wesley Yates that you can kind of see that happening. And if it does, then I think, and if that's how Kentucky wants to put a cap on it, I think the roster is in very good shape going into 2025-26.
Jacob, for my money, Kentucky has pushed its chips in on Wesley Yates and just saying, let's wrap this thing up. Let's put a bow on it. But the interesting one to me, Jacob, is that Zoom meeting today with Jaden Quaintance. We can confirm that meeting did happen and conversations have been ongoing. Obviously, a very familiar face for Kentucky fans, former Kentucky signee. Thought of to be a generational prospect under John Calipari, was a guaranteed 2-year player because of his age restrictions, not able to go enter the NBA draft this cycle, but will be eligible this upcoming cycle. Interesting dynamic there. Obviously, the talent is very clear, very obvious, but coming off a torn ACL, just underwent ACL surgery back in mid-March. So just how does that kind of play into the picture here as we know conversations are ongoing with the former top 5 recruit?
Yeah, I think that Kentucky has the chance to be selective with this last spot and put their chips in for a guy like Jaden Quaintance, go for a guy like Wesley Yates, and look at kind of their value, because in today's NIL world, you need to determine what value am I getting for a guy at his current NIL price. And so you see a guy like Jaden Quaintance, you see a guy like Wesley Yates, and you see all the other guys on their board. And I think it's just a matter of determining who are you going to get the best value for, especially positionally, because obviously Yates and Quaintance are 2 very different players positionally.
Yeah, I think it's not really close. I think you have to have some type of sniper, get that Kobe Bryant replacement, that go-to kind of, catch and shoot threat. And I think Wesley Yates fits that to a T. I think that's a perfect fit there. That's why they like that. Obviously there's some other options out there if you do happen to miss on that, but I do think that's kind of priority number 1 at this stage. And then just kind of feel things out from there, Zach. Jaden, obviously we saw him live several times. What would you think about that possibility? Do you think, knowing what the NIL cost of that would probably be, how would you envision that one kind of moving forward? And is that, knowing the risk and reward there, is that something you would pursue?
I think Kentucky is in a position right now where they can now be a little picky choosy, and they can wait things out a little bit longer, see what other guys go in the portal. If they want to lock up Yates right now, get a, kind of a proven guy, then I'm perfectly fine with that. But if they also want to, maybe open up another roster spot and add and think about adding another guy in that same mold as Quaintance, I'm not sure he's the guy that I would maybe want them to go after, because of, like you said, there's a high reward with the possibility there, because he's probably going to be an NBA player one day. but there's a lot of higher risk. He's got the torn ACL. When does he come back? Does he come back in the middle of the season? Is he going to still demand all that money even though he's playing half the season? There's a pretty good chance that he just ups and leaves and goes to the NBA after, no matter kind of what happens if his knee ends up being healthy. So I think there will end up being better options out there as time goes along and just more kids enter the portal, because it's till the 22nd until they can enter the portal. So another 15 days for all these kids to go into the portal. So I do think that they can now be a little bit more patient with how they want to go about filling out this last spot or two. But I think if you can get Yates, you just kind of lock that down and then maybe put Quaintance on the back burner, see if he's willing to wait things out a little bit longer. I know the whole house settlement thing's coming into play, so we'll see how that changes things. I'm sure that probably played into Diabate making this decision today. So we'll see how fast things happen with Yates, if that's kind of on his mind as well. But so yeah, the Quaintance thing, I'm still kind of like 50-50, maybe more 45 yes, 55 no at this spot. But we'll see how we got to see and wait and see who else goes under the portal and if they can lock up Yates, and then we'll go from there. And then I think you can really look at, okay, is Jaden Quaintance the guy that they actually want to lock down?
I would obviously need to see the medical and make sure that passes the early speculation from national reporters. I think Jonathan Gavoni was the one that put out that he's going to return to contact in September, which that doesn't mean full contact.
Quick.
That doesn't mean 5-on-5. Like, what does that look like? So you're at least looking at somewhat delayed into the season. But if you can guarantee me that he will play wearing a Kentucky jersey, like, we just can't afford another Shaden Sharp type of deal where he signs, he's sitting on the bench, you can show up and watch him practice. I need some type of assurance that he will play at some point this season, but he's the type of needle mover where I think the group, if you can land a Wesley Yates, that group as currently constructed and assembled is a contender. Like, I think that group is really, really strong. And if you can get a guy that no matter when he's able to suit up, if you can get, just throw Jaden Quaintance, it kind of reminds me of like a better version of when you got Zvonimir Ivicic randomly in the middle of SEC play, where if you can just get that new kind of just little variable thrown in the mix and just watch it all bubble over into hopefully championship contention. I would personally do it. There's a risk. I totally understand it, but man, that he's definitely the type of guy that could elevate your ceiling, and I think that's something that Mark Pope would be interested. Part of the reason why they were willing to have that conversation today. But very exciting day in Lexington. Very exciting for BBN. Obviously, some early impatience. It has led to some long-term rewards. So, Jacob, are the vibes good? Are you feeling good about just kind of where things stand with the roster as we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I think we can all kind of take a deep breath, see who they get for that last spot, and know that they have a pretty competent roster in place, and whoever they get for that last spot is just an addition that will make things even better.
And there, just real quick, there are a lot of questions, obviously, about Alvaro Filgaris. Is just where do things stand with him now that you do have this new addition thrown in the mix?
Yeah, I think that it will be a question on how hard Kentucky pursues, especially since it's hard to get a real idea. I know there were some rumors that he was back in the United States, but I talked to people close to his recruitment. They said he is still in Spain as of this afternoon. So I don't believe he's in the United States yet. And I think that that's just going to stay on the back burner until he's back. And if Kentucky has their roster filled out by then he'll have to find a new place to go.
Always great to have options. Mark Pope certainly does have that, obviously, with a lot of runway to go. April 22nd is when the portal closes, and obviously, we can get new additions all the way through basically through summer or whatever. So a long runway to go is just a couple, one or two spots here to go, but the roster is definitely looking impressive, and definitely an addition to get excited for. Mouhamed Diabate is a Kentucky Wildcat transferring from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Go make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. If you did, you would know that this was not a surprising commitment, and Kentucky had emerged as kind of the go-to guy. So make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. Make sure you're subscribed right here on the KSR YouTube channel, and hopefully we will see you very soon as we kind of wrap up this roster on the KSR YouTube channel. Go Cats!